The phone had not rung in months. Yet on his son's birthday, Daniel felt a sudden urge to drive to a house he had avoided for years. The streets were too quiet, as if the world already knew what he was about to discover. No balloons, no laughter, just an unlocked door waiting for him. Inside, the air smelled like memories that no one had touched. Then he saw the old birthday cake covered in dust and realized something was very wrong. A recorder blinked from the bedroom, as if it had been expecting him. When he pressed play, his dead son's voice whispered, "Dad, you finally came." That was the moment Daniel understood why the calls had stopped. The calendar hung crooked on the kitchen wall. March the 12th circled in red ink. Daniel Reed stared at it while the kettle screamed. The sound scraped through his skull like metal dragged across stone. He turned the flame off. Silence flooded the small apartment. Too much silence. His phone rested on the counter. No messages, no missed calls, just the reflection of his tired face on the black screen. Today was his son Elliot's birthday, 17 years old. Daniel pressed his palms against the counter. Cold granite, colder than it should have felt. He whispered the number again, 17. He tried to remember the last birthday he attended. Balloons, cake, laughter. The memory slipped away like fog in sunlight. All that remained was a dull ache behind his ribs. For years he had promised himself he would show up next time. Work always stood in the way. Late meetings, flights, endless deadlines. He told himself a good father provided. He told himself Elliot would understand. Yet the calls had grown shorter, then fewer, then gone. Daniel picked up his phone. He scrolled to Elliot's contact. No recent activity. The last call sat 3 months back. Duration, 12 seconds. He pressed call. The ringtone echoed. 1223, then nothing. Voicemail. The automated voice sounded too cheerful. He hung up before the tone. A strange pressure built inside his chest. Not quite panic, not yet grief, just something tightening. The kettle clicked softly as it cooled. A memory surfaced. Elliot at 5 years old, standing at the window, watching other children with their fathers. Small fingers pressed against the glass. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. Enough. He grabbed his coat. Keys trembled in his hand. Today he would go. No warning, no excuses. Just show up. The drive stretched longer than he remembered. Gray clouds sagged low over the highway. Traffic hummed like distant machinery. His hands stayed locked on the wheel. He noticed how pale his knuckles looked. When had his hands aged so much? The town appeared unchanged. Quiet streets, bare trees, the same bakery on the corner. The smell of warm bread leaked into the cold air as he stepped out of the car. For a moment, he almost smiled. Then the feeling vanished. Elliot's house stood at the end of Maple Street, white paint peeling, garden overgrown, no decorations, no balloons. Daniel frowned. He walked up the path. Leaves crunched beneath his shoes. The sound felt too loud. He knocked. No answer. He knocked again. Harder. The door creaked open on its own. Unlocked. A thin thread of unease slipped down his spine. Hello. His voice sounded smaller than he intended. The hallway smelled faintly of dust and something stale. Not rot. Not exactly. Just the scent of a space untouched. Elliot. Silence answered. Daniel stepped inside. The floor groaned. Every step carried weight. On the wall hung photographs, school portraits, science fair ribbons, soccer trophies. In each image, Elliot smiled alone. Daniel leaned closer. No father beside him. No shared frame. His throat tightened. He moved toward the living room. Curtains drawn. Light filtered through in thin gray blades. Particles floated lazily in the air. The couch remained perfectly neat. Too neat. As if no one had sat there in months. A sound reached him. Soft. Mechanical. Tick, tick. A clock somewhere deeper in the house. He followed it. The kitchen came into view. Empty chairs, a dry sink. Then he saw a cake box on the table, untouched. Dust rested on the lid. His heart skipped. Dust did not settle in a single day. He brushed it away with trembling fingers. The date printed on the bakery sticker froze him. March the 12th, last year. Cold air seemed to gather around his ankles. He backed away slowly. Elliot, still no reply. Only that clock. Tick, tick, tick. He moved toward the staircase. Each step groaned louder than the last. Halfway up, a smell drifted down. Faint antiseptic, hospital clean. It made his stomach twist. At the top sat a closed bedroom door. A strip of yellow light shone beneath it. Daniel pushed the door open. The ticking stopped instantly. Inside, the room looked preserved. Bed made tight. Books aligned, posters straight. On the desk stood a small digital recorder. Its red light blinked once, then went dark. Daniel approached slowly. A note lay beside it, written in careful handwriting, for Dad. His fingers hovered above it. Suddenly the air felt heavy, hard to pull into his lungs. He picked up the recorder instead, pressed play. Static crackled. Then Elliot's voice emerged, older than Daniel remembered, calmer. "Hey Dad," Daniel swallowed. "If you are hearing this, you finally came. Have you Elliot's XT?" The words pierced deeper than any accusation. "I kept calling every birthday." Tick returned, not from a clock, from inside Daniel's ears. "I knew you were busy." A small inhale through the speaker. "I waited anyway." Daniel gripped the desk, his vision blurred. "Last year the doctor said I had months." The room tilted. "Months. I called that night." A pause filled with faint breathing. "You sent the call to voicemail. You sent the call to voicemail." Daniel shook his head violently. Memory flashed. An unknown number during a meeting. He had silenced it without looking. The recorder continued. "I wanted to hear your voice one more time." The air turned sharp. Each breath cut. "I stopped calling after that." The sentence landed with a final weight. Not anger, not bitterness. Just exhaustion. Daniel collapsed into the chair. His legs refused to hold him. A buzzing grew louder. He realized it was coming from his own skull. The recording carried on. "There is something you never knew." Daniel leaned closer. His heartbeat thundered. "You were at every birthday." He frowned. Confusion tangled with dread. "I recorded the voicemails you never answered." A drawer stood slightly open. Daniel pulled it. Inside sat dozens of small tapes, each labeled with a year. He grabbed one at random. Age 10, slid it into the recorder. A younger Elliot spoke. "Hi, Dad. It is my birthday today. Mom says you are traveling again. I saved you cake." Daniel pressed a hand over his mouth. Another tape. Age 12. "Hi, Dad. I made the soccer team. I looked for you in the stands anyway." His chest burned. He forced another tape in. Age 15. Voice weaker. "Hospital smells weird. Wish you were here." Daniel doubled over. A sound tore from his throat. Half sob. Half something animal. The final tape rested at the back. Age 16. He hesitated, then pressed play. Breathing filled the speaker. Thin, fragile. "Happy birthday to me." A faint laugh cracked apart. Indica. H apart. "If you listen later, I want you to know I tried." Daniel felt something inside him fracture. A knock echoed downstairs. Sharp. Unexpected. He stumbled toward the hall. A woman stood at the front door when he opened it. Gray coat. Kind but tired eyes. She studied him carefully. "You must be Daniel." He nodded slowly. "I am Mrs. Harper. I lived next door." The smell of rain drifted in behind her. She glanced at the staircase. "So you found the recordings?" Daniel's lips trembled. "Where is Elliot?" The question scraped out raw. Mrs. Harper inhaled deeply. "He passed away 8 months ago." The world shrank to a pinpoint. Daniel felt his pulse in his teeth, in his fingertips, in places he never noticed before. "No." The word fell apart. She stepped closer. "He waited for you. Every birthday he set an extra plate." Daniel saw it then, through the kitchen doorway. A single chair slightly pulled out, as if someone had just risen. "He asked me to keep the house until you came." Her voice softened further. "He believed you would." Daniel staggered backward. The hallway stretched unnaturally long. Sounds dulled, colors drained. Mrs. Harper placed something into his hand. A wrapped box, light as paper, for you. He finished it days before. Daniel tore the paper away. Inside rested a framed photograph. He froze. The image showed Elliot at a birthday table, empty chair beside him. Yet in the glass reflection stood Daniel, smiling, hand resting on Elliot's shoulder. Daniel's breath stopped. "I never took that picture." Mrs. Harper nodded slowly. "He learned editing during treatment. Said he wanted at least one photo where you showed up." The floor lurched. Daniel clutched the wall. A low ringing filled the house. Then he heard it. Footsteps above. Soft. Soft. Measured. He looked at Mrs. Harper. Her expression shifted to confusion. "Is someone upstairs?" she whispered. The air grew colder. Daniel turned toward the staircase. Another step. Wood bending gently. He climbed without thinking, each stair colder than the last. At the top, Elliot's bedroom door stood open again. The recorder blinked red, though Daniel remembered turning it off. A new message played. Static. Then a whisper. "Dad." Daniel's heart slammed violently. The voice sounded close. Too close. "I knew you would come on my birthday eventually." He stepped inside, Enderhead, and came side. The temperature dropped sharply. His breath fogged. I waited. The closet door creaked, slowly opening. Darkness pooled inside. I am still waiting. Daniel's skin prickled. Every instinct screamed to run, yet his feet stayed planted. A shape formed within the shadow. Tall now, not the small boy he remembered. eyes reflecting faint light. Unblinking, Daniel tried to speak. No sound came. The figure leaned forward slightly. "I stopped calling because you never answered." The whisper brushed his ear. Though the figure stood across the room, a cold pressure settled onto his shoulder, like a hand that carried no weight. Daniel squeezed his eyes shut. "I am here now," he rasped. The silence that followed felt endless. When he opened them again, the room stood empty. Only the recorder ticking softly, yet the cold handprint remained on his shoulder, and from somewhere in the house, a chair scraped across the floor. Daniel stood frozen in the center of the room, unable to tell whether the cold came from the winter air or from something standing too close behind him. The recorder suddenly clicked off, yet the faint echo of Elliot's voice lingered, pressing against the silence. He looked at the photograph again and noticed a detail he had missed before. In the reflection, Elliot was not looking at the camera. He was looking at the empty chair beside him, waiting. Daniel slowly pulled the chair out and sat down, his hands trembling as tears blurred his vision. "I am here now, son," he whispered into the stillness. For a brief second, the pressure on his shoulder returned, gentle, almost forgiving. The cold began to fade, replaced by a quiet warmth he had not felt in years. Outside, the first rays of morning slipped through the curtains, and Daniel realized some calls never truly stop. They only wait for someone brave enough to answer.